Jackson Jobe makes another start. Javier Baez plays a position he has not played in many years. And the Tigers make a very, very small trade. We'll talk about all of that and more all today on Locked On Tigers.
You are Locked On Tigers, your daily Detroit Tigers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Tigers. I'm, of course, your host, Scott Bentley. Today is Friday, March 14th, 2025. Thank you so much for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome in, everyone. Happy Friday. Hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Had a good week this week. All that good stuff. The Detroit Tigers lose to the New York Yankees on Thursday afternoon. We are going to talk about that. Some things to take away from that game, despite the fact that it was not televised. We are going to talk about the weekend ahead, as there's obviously more spring training baseball, but the spring breakout game for the Detroit Tigers on Sunday as well, and I'll get their opponent correct this time. We also are going to talk about Javier Baez playing a new position. I say new. He's played, I think it's 500-600 innings there in his career, but certainly far fewer than the middle infield that we are used to seeing him at, playing third base on Thursday. We'll talk about the impact that could have on the roster. We're also just going to talk about the rotation as a whole with Jackson Jobe's performance. Tigers make a small trade and, anything else that comes across the desk here. So let's start off by talking about Jackson Jobe. In this outing, he went 3 2/3, 3 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, 2 home runs against. So this was not a very good performance. I don't just want to come on here and complain all the time, man. But it's very hard for me to identify what I believe, my opinion of what he could have done better or was maybe doing wrong at and whatnot, when there's no video evidence that this even happened, right? Like this is Wilt Chamberlain scoring 100. Like I didn't see any of it. Like there's no evidence of any of it besides firsthand accounts. So obviously I say that half tongue in cheek, but like it is, people ask me like, oh, like what do you think of Jobe now? Like I'm not going to come to a conclusion off of a box score, man. Like I can tell you this, that he threw a lot of variation of fastball in this game. So I think that he's probably working on certain pitches and certain sequences and certain developments. He threw a boatload of cutters in this game, and his cutter is basically just like a really fast slider. Because he's a freak and his stuff is incredible. But the overarching theme throughout all of spring has been an inability to consistently get swing and miss. And there is no reason for a dude that has stuff as diabolical as he does that he shouldn't be getting more swing and miss. And that is objectively true, and I completely agree with that. The thing is, I am extremely confident that it will come. And just because he is not getting he doesn't have an uber high whiff rate right now in 4 outings of spring training baseball in 2025 does not make me think that he is not going to be able to get swings and misses this season or throughout his Major League Baseball career. I fully expect this dude to be incredible. In this outing specifically, he was hit really, really, really hard. And I don't just mean like the 2 home runs against and 3 2/3. Obviously, that's not great. He only gave up 3 total hits in this outing. It's not awful. But every time that the hitter made contact, it was hit hard. His average exit velocity, this is all on Baseball Savant, His average exit velocity in this outing was over 95 miles an hour. For those who are unaware, Baseball Savant classifies a barrel. There's a certain launch angle you have to get between. It's, right in the sweet spot there. But as far as exit velocity goes, it's got to be faster than 95 off the bat, or at least that's what it originally. It's changed slightly. Either way, he essentially, launch angle removed from the equation, he was giving up a hard hit every single time the hitter made contact with the baseball. Now, he did have 3 strikeouts in 3 2/3, which is certainly not bad. We'll take a strikeout an inning, right? But I think that there is certainly adjustments that still need to be made in order to get him that swing and miss, those swing and miss numbers that should be tied with the swing and miss stuff that he very clearly has when watching him. I think one of the adjustments that he needs to continue to make is simply just command. And again, I didn't see this outing. I don't know. Maybe he was pinpointing and just got unlucky. I have no clue. But in this outings we have had in the spring, or that we have seen from him, I should say, in the spring, one of the big things that is pretty noticeable is command of really everything, but honestly, it's the command of non-fastball stuff. His heater is so dynamic that if it's in just like the top half of the strike zone, unless the hitter's sitting on it, like that's going to be able to get swing and miss, and has at times throughout spring. The breaking stuff needs to be located correctly. That is stuff that you need to be able to get people to chase on. You need to be able to bury that low and away to righties or low and in on lefties. And if you are missing up, if you are letting that pitch get higher than you intend, you're not going to get any swing and miss on it, especially to opposite handed hitters, right? Especially to lefties. Major league left-handed hitters are not going to miss breaking balls that are in the bottom of the strike zone. So it's all about getting those pitches, keeping those pitches down, and obviously when to use them as well. So I think there's a lot of like minute, smaller stuff that I could, talk about that I want to see out of him as well. I think part of it is just replicable mechanics. And that's just something that will come with player development, and the more repetition and the more innings he throws, right? Naturally, he's going to be able to repeat those movements more. But I am, I saw a lot of people online that were like, oh, well, like after this outing, he should be in AAA. We didn't see him. Like that's, we can obviously look at the box score, and again, like he got hit hard today. I'm not telling you that this was secretly a really good performance and everybody's wrong, but like for me personally, I don't want to just look at a box score and come to that conclusion. I want to like actually see what he's offering and why he had the final line that he did in this outing. So, and on top of that, in spring training, his ERA is 3.65. Like, you know what I mean? We're not talking about a dude that has an ERA of 7. Like his ERA is still around 3.5 in spring training, and he's made 5 outings, and he's almost assuredly going to get at least one more. I got to look at my calendar here. Yeah, we got just under 2 weeks until opening day, so that's about a week and a half still until they head up north, whether that's Toledo or Detroit. Still north of Lakeland for all you geography whizzes out there. But that is something that I think he's going to make one more outing. Hopefully we'll be able to see it and take what we can from it. I think a lot of people jump to the rotation. In my mind, I would still significantly prefer Jackson Jobe and what we have seen from him in the spring, even if it's not like a fully polished product, than I would Kenta Maeda in the 5th spot. And Kenta Maeda looks way better. That is not an indictment of Maeda's spring. I've been very impressed with Maeda this spring. People actually got mad at me last time I talked about Kenta Maeda because they said I was too happy with his spring. But I think that is, maybe he can flourish in that long relief role or like a swingman type of role. I want Jobe to develop against major league hitters at the major league level, and I think he has the stuff to be able to help this team in April and not have to wait till later in the year. He's not going to have a perfect season, guys. Like, this is a rookie. I know that he's hyped. I know that he's the number one pitching prospect in baseball outside of like Sasaki, who I don't even really count as a prospect, but technically I guess is. Like, I get that, but you cannot expect him to just get called up and be, like Paul Skeens is the anomaly here, not Jackson Jobe. Almost every pitcher who's ever came up has gone through rough patches early and had to make adjustments and learn some new things at the major league level. Let's do that now. That's my 2 cents on it. Okay, let's talk about Javy playing third base in this baseball game. Then we'll get into some other news and notes from the game itself. We'll talk about the trade the Tigers made. We'll talk about the prospect breakout round robin, whatever they're calling it. We'll do all of that and more right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at FanDuel. All reliable. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year. As I said, my roommate and I have been really locked into these small conference tourneys. They're the best, dude, because those are you have to win to get in. And FanDuel makes it really easy for me to back those underdogs with spreads, totals, and game props as well. With tournament games happening almost every single day from this Sunday, Selection Sunday, baby. We're almost there at one of the best times of the year, and there's always something exciting to bet on as well. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly, so there's no waiting around. Visit FanDuel.com and get in on college hoops action all tournament long. I almost said all summer long. All spring long. How about that? All right, everybody, welcome back here. Segment 2, Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, as always, making us your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We, of course, will be back on Monday, recapping the weekend that is, talking about news and notes, talking about the prospect breakout game, all that good stuff. I'm assuming there will be another round of opening day roster cuts from now until we speak again as well. We will have you covered with all of that information as we get one step closer to opening day. Putting a bow on the rotation conversation we had before the break. I didn't mention Casey Mize there because I almost said in my mind, Casey Mize is in this rotation. I think what we have seen from him in his last 3 outings is just so cut and dry, better than what we have seen out of Mize maybe in his entire major league career, but B, has the potential to be more consistent than anything we've seen from Jobe and Maeda. I think Mize is in the rotation as it stands right now, and I think you can carry all 3 of those guys and put Maeda in the bullpen. You can do it, and I don't know why you wouldn't. Okay, let's talk about Javi Baez. Played third base in this baseball game. Had an error at third base, apparently. Also had a double at the plate, which is obviously nice to see. Evan Petzold got one good play Javi made on a grounder as well over at third base. So I don't have an issue with this. I want to start off with that. I have zero problem with Javi playing third base. I said this on Chris and Company with former Locked On Tigers host Chris Castellani. You can go check out him and I sit down and just kind of talk Tigers ball for the better part of an hour over at his channels. But I said this when I was on his show this week. Like, it doesn't. I know a lot of people hear Javi's name and immediately their blood just boils and they go, why don't they just cut him, get him off the roster, whatever. I am here to tell you that it unfortunately does not matter what your opinion or what my opinion of Javi Baez is and what his role on the team should be in 2025. The Tigers are going to do everything in their power to try to find a lick of value out of Javi going forward. They're going to do everything in their power to get anything out of him, given how much money that the Tigers still owe him. Okay? They are not giving up tomorrow. They are not buying him out tomorrow. It's not happening. I think my wording on Chris's show when he asked me if there's anything the Tigers can get out of Javi is it doesn't matter. We're going to find out. And that's because the Tigers are going to put him in a multitude of situations and try a bunch of different things to try to get, as I've said now 50 times, I'll stop repeating myself, the most value as possible out of him. This does help him and Trey Sweeney coexist on a roster, which I can appreciate because I think it honestly would have been ridiculous for Trey Sweeney to not make this team out of camp given what Javi has been over the last 2 years. I think it would be, ridiculous, I guess, really is the word. I was trying to think of a better word to describe it there. I think ridiculous is the word. I think it would be absurd. So I think this helps that, and I think that this really leans heavily into the possibility of Trey Sweeney making the opening day roster, which I am thankful for, and I'm hoping that I'm reading that situation correctly. That's my takeaway from this, that Trey Sweeney's probably going to be there. When it comes to third base, because we've talked about like the possibility of a platoon at shortstop with Trey Sweeney and Javy for like 6 months now, right? And that obviously could still happen. I think we started that conversation like in August of last year or whenever Trey Sweeney first got called up. Third base is where this becomes rather interesting. Jace Young hasn't hit particularly well, but has hit at pretty much every level he's ever played at. And I think the Tigers and myself, not that my opinion matters to anybody, it shouldn't and doesn't in the Tigers organization. I'm just saying that I agree with them. That was my only point there. Not trying to make my voice, any louder than it is. My point is that I think that he will be better than we saw last season. That's all. And I think the Tigers believe that he can be better offensively and will be better offensively than he was last season. Defensively, there's a lot of question marks still, and there's still also a lot of question marks on whether he can hit lefties at the major league level. I'm pretty convinced he'll get righties down at some point. Lefties is always going to be a question that's kind of pitching is so difficult these days. Well, hitting is so difficult because pitching is so good these days that I am pretty much in I have to see it to believe it mindset with like left-handed hitters being able to hit left-handed pitchers at this point. So we'll see. All of this rambling is just to say that I think roster flexibility for Javy is good. Positional versatility for Javy is good because it allows not only for him to only be put in more specific situations that Hinch is more confident he can thrive in. That also means inherently it's addition by subtraction too. He is playing less of an everyday role, meaning that somebody that can hit more than a 500 OPS is going to be in the lineup more often than it was last season. I think this can only lead to good things and increased offense, and I hope that they stick with it and follow through with it, and then that this isn't just some, we're trying it out in spring, but like, when the regular season rolls around, we probably won't stick to this. I hope they just, I really hope they do. I hope that he is, Veerling's not playing anyways. Obviously, you have Ibanez who can play third and is a righty that hits lefties well. But I think having Javy be able to play both of those positions, second base if needed, but like Glaber's going to play in almost all situations as well, giving him that versatility, I think only improves the roster because even if Javy doesn't figure it out and hits the exact same as last year, well, then he's in the lineup less inherently because of this flexibility and because they'd be bringing Trey Sweeney up north with them. Now, that also leads to questions of Jahen and Torque coexisting on the roster. We talked about that a little bit yesterday and the day before, the prospect of that, how that's becoming seemingly more and more likely, especially if Winfield Perez is hurt too, and especially if Parker Meadows isn't ready by opening day. The one thing that is interesting to me is that the Tigers did fill their 40th spot on the 40-man roster. As we talked about at the end of last week, ever since they signed or ever since they moved Sawyer Gibson Long rather to the 60-day IL, they have been rocking with 39 people on their 40-man. On Thursday, they filled it back to 40, and it's not Jahmai Jones, which I think is very interesting. We'll talk about that and more right after this. Got to talk to y'all today about our friends over at Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and been, like, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's really easy to lose track these days. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop managing your money and start building your wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery, and now I budget smarter and I save a lot more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is also smoother than ever with Monarch Money. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off of your first year. All right, everybody, welcome back here. Third and final segment of Locked On Tigers. Appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Talking about the return of Bailey Horn. I'm not going to go too in-depth here because we did more of a breakdown on Bailey Horn when the Tigers got him the first time back in November. Clearly, this organization sees something that they like in the left-handed pitcher here. So just to give you a quick rundown, if you don't recall, the Tigers claimed him off waivers from the Red Sox in November. Okay, pretty quickly after the season ended, he goes on waivers. The Tigers claim him. He's on the 40-man for 2 months. Early January rolls around. Bailey Horn is then put on waivers and is, because the Tigers are trying to open up a 40-man roster spot, and the Cardinals claim him off waivers. He's been in the Cardinals organization since January 9th or 10th. And now on Thursday, March 13th, the Tigers trade for Bailey Horn from the St. Louis Cardinals organization for cash considerations. Clearly, they really like Bailey Horn. Claimed him, lost him, said, you know what, you're not doing that to me, traded back for him. And I think that there is something to be said for just how spring training has kind of shaken down. Adding left-handed pitchers to the organizational depth is adding left-handed pitchers to the organization for depth is only a good thing. I'm always going to be okay with really adding pitchers, period. I'm never going to be too upset at them adding a pitcher just for depth purposes if they think they find something they like. I trust this coaching staff on the pitching side of things, this organization's pitching development, pitching coaching staff, etc., with my life. Legitimately, if they like something they see, have at it, have fun, dude. Like I am not going to. It would take like them signing my roommate who didn't make our T-ball team when we were little kids. Sorry to put him on blast like that. For them to, for me to be like, all right, like maybe that's a little ridiculous. Like it would take a lot, dude. Like if you are a professional level pitcher and this organization is this adamant on you being a part of it, sure, dude. Doesn't have a very good Major League ERA, but also has only thrown a few innings. Minor league numbers are pretty average. I'm sure this is just an organizational depth thing, like I've been saying, and that he's not going to get too much playing time at the Major League level, but he does return to the Detroit Tigers organization. He is also kept on the 40-man, but optioned to AAA Toledo. So we will see what happens with that. As far as the Jahmai Jones thing goes, I still think that a lot of that is just going to be determined rather by Parker Meadows' health. And I guess Winfield Perez, who still hasn't played, even though we keep being told he's going to. So I think that both of those guys, their health and status is going to determine Jahmai Jones, roster future more than maybe Jahmai Jones is. But, we'll see how that kind of shakes out. The Detroit Tigers spring breakout game is Sunday at 4 p.m. against the Atlanta Braves. I have no clue where I got Philadelphia Phillies from when we talked about this on Tuesday earlier this week. No clue. I've checked my notes. I wrote Braves down. We played the Braves, so it was super easy to just say, I have zero clue where I got Phillies from, but we'll get it right this time. They do play the Atlanta Braves, whose farm system is weird because it was so good, and then all those players got promoted, and now the Braves are obviously really, really good, and their young players are all under contract. Really, all their players, period, are under contract for such a long period of time that the only thing that can really get in the way of the Braves being really good is just health and injuries. So we'll see. They've traded their prospects away to get better when they buy at the deadline, and they can afford to do that very easily because they're all blocked, all of them. It's you know what I mean? It's just weird. You have a catching prospect. Okay, well, not for a while. You're not going to get any playing time. Second base, not for a while. First base, not for a while. Pretty much anywhere in the outfield, not for a while. Third base, no. They could use pitching depth, but every team in baseball could use that. So we'll see. I'm excited to see all of the great prospects. We talked about the roster when it was released, actually a few days after it was released, but we talked about it earlier this week. So if you're curious on who made the team for the Tigers, you can go check out that episode. I think that's all I got. Thanks for making Locked On Tigers your first listen every single day. Shout out to the everydayers that do tune in every day. We, of course, will be back on Monday recapping the weekend that is, as well as talking about any, news and notes, any more cuts that happen, etc. After you make us your first listen, make Locked On MLB your second listen. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout spring training. You can find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. I'll catch all the... Ooh, you almost got me. Almost, but I caught you because I'm a pro. Catch you Monday. Peace and love. Going to therapy's dope. Catch y'all then, baby. Go Tigers.